Game show on the run, ladies and gentlemen, with Graham Elwood and technical support by Lee Kim. So you're just always in a studio during this. You in, even though I'm on the run from somewhere.
Yes. Well, and that's all the NSA has is that 1 hour where they try and learn everything about you. That's all they can get is government secrets. They're like, God damn it, he's still podcasting.
So why is he still podcasting? All right. I'm getting some people in the chat saying they can't hear you, but I think I fixed it. Let me know if they can hear Lee all of a sudden.
Testing.
There we go. Everybody said thank you. It's fun. I think I'm going to try to intentionally have a sound problem every episode, just so that, and then we should have an over-under on how many people lose their shit in the chat. Like how quickly they just, right. Like I love that somebody thinks when they type one thing once, it immediately goes into my soundboard and fixes it.
Well, yeah, it turns out if they can't hear you, they're rather upset. If they can't hear me, they're actually rather excited. So they seem fine with that.
Keep Lee muted.
Why? Keep Lee muted, please.
I think when the people wake
up... More sound problems.
It's just like, I see it and I change it, and then there's a delay from when we're actually recording to when they actually see it, and they keep flipping out. It's sort of like when you're like in a left turn lane and the person in the like you're at the front and the three cars behind you is honking and losing your shit, and they're like, there's a woman with a baby carriage and I can't go left, right, in the crosswalk, can you just settle down? And then they just, and it's like, there's a woman there, oh well, you still should have gone. Oh, okay, well, you're a psycho.
And what if peer pressure was so powerful to you, you just really wanted to be liked, that you were like, all right, we're doing this, and you just gun it over the woman with the baby carriage, and you're like, I hope that guy behind me likes me now.
Blame the guy that honked. I'm not responsible for my behavior. All right, let's get into government secrets. Our first segment number one.
Let's do it. We got 3 or 4 topics for you, and they're pretty good this week.
They're hot and fresh. So this is actually I found this Kennedy's and the King. There's a website called literally Kennedy's and the King, and it is going on Lisa. This particular article is going on Lisa Pease has a book called A Lie Too Big to Fail, The Real History of the Robert Kennedy Assassination. And it's one of the more overlooked ones. Obviously, we all know about JFK. We know about the magic bullet. We know about the grassy knoll. We know about Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby.
Yeah, and for people that want more on JFK, one of the best books is The Unspeakable. It's pretty great. I mean, it really goes through everything.
Okay. And yeah, I'm sure there's even more to uncover. I mean, it was the JFK assassination is when the CIA came up with the term conspiracy theorist to make anybody asking questions just seem like a whack job, and to lump anybody asking legitimate questions into the, flat earther, we didn't land on the moon crowd, you know what I mean? To just make everybody become nuts. And when you look at the JFKs and you look at who's on the Warren Commission, Gerald Ford was on the Warren Commission and people like that. Weird that he became a president. But the thing about, and I just want to do a little back history for anybody, any younger listeners or viewers who aren't that familiar with Bobby Kennedy. Bobby was way more progressive than Jack. I mean, Bobby was the one who really started kind of coming around. There's a great documentary on Netflix called Bobby Kennedy for President, and really talks about his sort of evolution. JFK was still sort of Joe Kennedy's, still in that sort of Joe Kennedy, do whatever you got to do to get power, and let's try to fix some things along the way.
Yeah, I mean, really, both of them had an evolution over the course of JFK's presidency.
Yeah, they did, because Bobby was his attorney general, and
right.
And then after
There was no nepotism there, though. That was just a coincidence.
No, he earned it. He earned it on merit.
Yeah.
He absolutely earned it on merit. There's that.
Like Ivanka Trump, all right? She has fucking fought her way up from nothing to whatever it is she does now. And I will not stand for anyone saying otherwise.
Jesus. All of them. Jared, they've all worked for it. They've worked for it.
Listen, Jared with his blank doll eyes and his dimple. This is a human being so repulsive that his dimples have evacuated his face. They left.
I can't. Blank doll eyes. If that's not the name of your next album, Lee, I don't know what you're doing. I really don't know what you're doing. So, blank doll eyes. Oh my God.
That's speaking of conspiracy theories, that's the biggest conspiracy is where the fuck did Jared's dimples go? So have you seen those photos?
Oh,
he used to have dimples in his cheeks and now they're gone.
What?
And it's pretty bizarre.
Oh my God. Maybe it's where like they stored Epstein's black book in his dimples and that's just leveled it off or something.
Could be. I think Peter Thiel, along with collecting everyone's urine, is collecting dimples from the ruling elite.
Right, because they did some psychopathic studies showing dimples make you 4% less likely to earn money or something like that. So they're going to take your dimples away or something like that. They're going to need dimples on Elon Musk's space station when they all evacuate and leave us here. Which, wouldn't that be the greatest? If we could convince all of them, get out, the planet's collapsing, and just get all the billionaires on some spaceship and they get out of here. And then we blow it up out of the sky, and then we can all come in, reasonable people, and fix the planet.
I swear there was either a show or a movie or I'm having some vague deja vu of something where they made The Simpsons, but I think The Simpsons did it, but they were basing it on something else. But where they pile everyone into a ship to say they're going to save them, and then they realize that ship is the one they're going to blow up or something.
I don't remember that Simpsons episode, but there was a Matt Damon kind of dystopian future movie where there was this space station for the rich and everyone on Earth was living in just a hellhole, and he went up there to, I don't know, of course he was the hero or some shit. Anyway, let's get back to Bobby Kennedy. Again, so Bobby was the one, the Vietnam War was in full swing. He was like, I'm getting us out of Vietnam. Again, if you watch that Bobby Kennedy for President documentary on Netflix, it shows how he really evolved and was like fighting with Chavez for workers' rights in the fields in California. He was really like fighting for people. He was the one that was saying it's not right that there's poor people and we're spending money on war. He started to really come around to Dr. King, and he was the real like hope of the true progressive left at that time. And so I just want to read some excerpts from this article that's, again, kennedy'sandtheking.com. And it's basically just kind of a review of the book, The Real History of the Assassination of Robert F. Kennedy, from Lisa Pease. And it said, it's a rare thing, indeed, when a book actually delivers everything you could wish for, and then some. So it talks about Robert Kennedy's encounter with an unspeakable in the pantry of the Ambassador Hotel on the night of June 5th, 1968. A Lie Too Big to Fail will no doubt stand the test of time as the definitive book on the RFK murder. Pease, the author, establishes not only the most compelling case against the LAPD's compromised non-investigation of the case to date. My understanding to date, Sirhan is still serving life in prison. But also the book reveals startling new discoveries, including previously unexplored forensic evidence, new witnesses to multiple shooters, and evidence of foul play at the highest levels of the United States political apparatus. So that right there, and we know, I mean, one of the things we know, because of new technology and forensics and DNA, cases have been reopened. They've found murders. I mean, like some of these true crime podcasts have solved crimes by DNA evidence that wasn't, they didn't have the technology back then.
Well, yeah, and I haven't studied the Robert Kennedy murder is probably the one I've studied the least out of MLK, JFK. But as I recall, this one guy had a revolver with 6 bullets, and he fired 42 bullets, I believe, at Robert Kennedy. So it doesn't really add up.
It's
he somehow shot him in the back of the head while standing in front of him. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and the whole thing about it is, and because there was still people, and even to this day, but back then, still people screaming about JFK and the grassy knoll and the magic bullet, people were kind of like, and I think the deep state used this as an advantage and got people in the media and politicians to go, come on, it's unfortunate, it was awful, but let's not go down another conspiracy grassy knoll road. Like it was a tragedy, it was awful. Let's just be done with it. And I think some people might have been okay with that, and they utilized the sort of American public's, at the time, you got to understand. So April of 68, MLK was assassinated. Malcolm X, I believe, was assassinated then, and then
Malcolm X was before somewhat, but
67-ish, maybe, early 68. I can't remember, but so I think they really took advantage of the everyone's just like Vietnam and another assassination, and forget it. And that's how they've been able to kind of keep people from asking questions about this one.
Malcolm X was 65.
Okay.
I mean, you're right. People were sick of it, and they just didn't want to. It's very tough to think that like elements of your own government are willing to take out so many powerful and popular leaders. I mean, and I think I think Robert Kennedy was taken out for what he stood for. I think he was also taken out because they suspected, and I think it's pretty likely, that he knew that his brother had, although he never said it publicly. I don't even know if there's even the innuendo of it, but he knew his brother wasn't killed by the lone shooter out of the book depository, and. Right. And he knew what his brother was up against with the CIA and everything. And he was, inside those fights where JFK was going up against them on things like the Bay of Pigs, which was, it seems the Bay of Pigs was basically a setup to try and force JFK's hand to invade Cuba. And he didn't go for it. Obviously, he agreed to allow the initial invasion, which was dumb. But he then, when they knew it would fail, and they thought it would force him into Cuba, and he refused to invade Cuba. So I think his brother kind of knew that something far more sinister had gone on in the execution of his brother, and they probably didn't want, the deep state, the CIA didn't want that at the top of the government either.
Oh, yeah, because if he becomes president, if Bobby becomes president, then it's like, all the stuff JFK had started. I mean, JFK said, I want to smash the CIA up into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the wind. He gave a speech that's on YouTube that people say this is the speech that probably got him killed, where he talks about there's a secret government, out there. And so of course Bobby knew about that. He was attorney general. His brother was president. So of course he knew all about that. And they're like, if he becomes president, then we're all going to get outed. And because, again, he was so popular, Bobby was so popular, he was not going to lose. I mean, literally, it was nuts. And that's why this is so, they had to, I mean, they literally had to stop him. And then you talk about LAPD, which I'm shocked LAPD did something nefarious. I'm shocked living here. They've been so fantastic just the last 2 months. This is a group of cops that, sometimes they can't keep their pants up because of all the extra guns and coke and crack they have on them to drop on people they've killed to make it look like they were carrying it. Yeah, not to mention like all the steroids they buy and use, illegal steroids. Like But
Yep, I did it. This is another government secret of our cops. I did a whole segment on Redacted tonight about how there's very few studies, but estimates are the few studies that have been. The estimates are 25% of cops in urban areas are abusing steroids, and of course, they're never tested for this. Like there is absolutely no testing for cop abuse of steroids, which causes them to make terrible decisions, quick to anger, violence prone, all that shit, and they're not even tested after they kill someone. Or like you'd think, I mean, if we give a fuck whether someone is juicing when they throw a stick really far at the Olympics, then you'd think as a society we might care whether a cop is juicing when they murder an unarmed person.
I don't know. Yeah, I know. If a guy can hit a baseball too far because of steroids, I don't know that it's worrisome that a guy with a gun and a badge is out of control. Yeah, it's insane. And also what this book comes up with is the author digs into the court records and transcripts of the also compromised defense attorney who sold the 24-year-old Sirhan down the river before he ever had a chance at anything approaching a fair trial. So this is just like how we got him.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's always, some lone crazy guy.
Yep.
And they do this all the time. I mean, they do this, they with the sex trafficking. Oh, Jerry Sandusky, one crazy guy, one priest,
right.
Just one bad coach in that school because they don't want to find out that, they're getting him for alumni and donors, and Les Wexner was probably whatever. Like, it's always that they paint the person as mentally unstable and one crazy bad guy.
Yeah, one horrible person did this, and it, and then they, like, obviously with JFK they eliminated the person because they didn't want Oswald to talk, and then with MLK, James Earl Ray, eventually he was pressured by he was very rather poor and not bright person, but he didn't kill Martin Luther King, but his court-appointed attorney or whatever told him the only way for you to get an actual trial is if you just sign this confession. So he signed a confession ultimately because he was told it was the only way to get a trial. And when he found out that wasn't true, he wasn't going to get the trial, he recanted his confession, and until his deathbed, never again said he had killed MLK.
Oh, and it fit a perfect narrative. Oh, poor white guy hated him. Poor Southern white guy hated MLK rather than the CIA. I mean, like, especially when you get the FBI who was monitoring all of these people, J. Edgar Hoover. So it's really, I want to get this, I want to read this book for starters, and I want to go more into this because
I had her on, was it Lisa Pease? I had her on Redacted Tonight VIP. We did not talk much about Robert Kennedy. We talked a lot more because I think she also put out a book about JFK, and so we talked more about that. But yeah,
it's amazing. She talks about this book. It's she goes all into it, and I actually was in the Ambassador Hotel. It used to be, now it's a school, but the Ambassador Hotel was.
You had a gig there. It was, during the JFK murder tour. I mean, RFK murder tour. You were the tour guide. You were like, "Come on and see these bullet holes, folks. They are hilarious."
Oh, look at no way this could have happened in this hallway. It was a movie shoot. It was an old they kept the Ambassador Hotel, and you could rent it out for movie shoots. And 20 years ago, I was shooting this short film, and they have a little dot on the ground where it happened, unfortunately. And you're just kind of like, wow, this is. And then you watch the footage, and crazy crowded hallway. So it could have, like, you create a chaos. You kettle somebody into and it's easy to make it seem like, oh, this could have happened.
Right, and it's undoubtable that Sirhan was there and held up a gun, I think, because there's photos of that. But it seems like the number of bullets fired and the actual kind of like execution shot was, as I understand it, was likely not fired by him.
Right.
And RFK Jr., who's still around today and does a bunch of environmental work and stuff like that, he said he does not believe Sirhan was the killer. And I think there was this article a couple of years ago where former CIA agent or something, or a security guard or something connected to the CIA died, and RFK Jr. said he believed that was the guy.
Well, that's interesting you bring that up because, again, in this book, Pease talks about the immediate aftermath of the shooting is where there's even more controversy in government secrets, which is the LAPD concluded, or we will see, decided actively to conclude with the urging of two former CIA interrogation experts who took over the investigation within days after the murder. So that right there is shady. Mm-hmm. Why would the CIA why is this CIA, why are they investigating a murder that's LAPD? It shouldn't be.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I get if the FBI because it's the president, but why is the CIA involved in this? Like,
yeah, I mean, that's another thing that's common with almost all of these is that basically immediately afterwards, the murder scene is just destroyed.
Yep.
like they come through with a fucking weed whacker and just clear out the place. And that happened after Martin Luther King, because Martin Luther King was shot. The famous balcony photo. He was shot while he was standing on that balcony from a bunch of hedges, tall hedges that were in front of the bar and grill, the back of the bar and grill that faced that hotel. And the following day, the Memphis, municipal whatever comes through and cuts all of the hedges away and cuts everything away and just destroys the murder scene. And also, makes it look like no one could have been hiding in those hedges because there now are no hedges. And also makes it look like James Earl Ray could have fired the shot from his hotel room when, in fact, there were hedges or trees in front of his hotel room. So they just destroy the murder scene. And they act like, it was just standard maintenance. The city just happened to be clearing out all of the bushes that day.
I love that we're supposed to believe that just like, it was Hedges Day. Sorry, that's
yeah. It was standard Hedges Day. And then with Malcolm X, which by the way, everyone should watch the Netflix on that because that's another fucking mind blowing thing. I mean, we should really just do that as a topic, in the coming weeks. But there's a recent Netflix show on who the real killers are of Malcolm X. And after he was killed in that ballroom, within hours, they go ahead and have a dance that was supposed to happen that night. They went ahead with it with bullet holes still in the walls. Wow. Like you've got like smoking bullet holes in the walls, and they're like, for this next dance, ladies, you get to pick the guy. Like.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to lock off a crime scene. It's not like that's kind of standard procedure in a murder investigation is to just lock off a crime scene.
I can't remember what it was, like 20 or 30 years after the assassination, someone was kind of doing, I don't know if they were investigating it again or they were just writing a report on it or whatever it was, but they went down into the basement and found the bullet-ridden podium just in storage in the basement of the place. 30 years later, no one had ever collected this bullet-ridden podium and thought, this might be useful evidence.
I don't know. Is a bullet hole or a shell casing or any of that stuff valuable in a murder investigation? I don't know. I'm not a cop, so it seems like maybe it's nothing.
I mean, it's amazing. And it's not just incompetence. This goes way beyond incompetence. This goes to, we really want everyone to not look into this.
Oh, it's so clear. It's that standard, like, whisk this away, don't ask questions, believe this nonsense. But part of the believing of the nonsense is sort of that mob, like, it's almost an intimidation tactic of like, yeah, you start asking too many questions, then you're going to fall down a flight of stairs. That'd be a real shame, if a set of knives jumped up and attacked you on your couch, you know what I mean? That'd be a real bummer, wouldn't it now? It's really like, That's what it feels like to me. So
these knives these days, these high tech knives, they'll just come after you. I've seen it happen. I really have.
Guys walking, it's like somebody walking home late. You know what I mean? Bad things happen. It's just awful. It happened while I was having dinner with a bunch of alibis. Like, wow, why would you phrase it that way? It's like,
me and we do Alibi Thursday. We always get together.
Always.
And we just have a really great alibi night.
Yeah, we post photos and there's a video.
Yeah.
It's just great. It's just great. Here's us in this restaurant. It's great. So that's like the Gov Seeks I wanted to bring up because I would recommend, first of all, the audience going to Kennedy's and King.com and then go through this article and I want to get this book as well because it's really she talks about a lie too big to fail achieves a fine balance between the immense complexity of the case with the thousands of files, its bizarre subjects and characters, its hypno-programming realities, and other strange but relevant source data, which is how they get these things swallowed by the American public. They make it complex. They ask questions, anything to keep everybody sort of off the trail. And what they're very good at is keeping everybody divided,
Well, and I'd say one of the other keys is you get the mainstream media, the legacy media, the New York Times and the 60 Minutes and all these to do segments about how, some people have, they basically throw some of the questions in there. Like some people have wondered about why this bullet hole is blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But then they answer their own questions and they say, well, it's funny you should ask that because it turns out that it was Sirhan after all. And they basically just put it on the kind of permanent record. New York Times addressed this issue and shot it all down. That I call the legacy media and everything, I call them the white blood cells because anytime there's an infection for the propaganda narrative, they attack it mercilessly.
Oh, and now we're seeing, I've showed this, there's this thing called the propaganda multiplier, which just shows it all comes down from the State Department and they feed it to all the networks. And now it's even, they know how to sell the narrative, like the Netflix, we've talked about this, the Netflix Epstein special. It gave the witnesses or the victims, it gave them a voice, which was great. And these victims would say these things like this powerful person, this powerful person, and then they would just cut to some other thing. And it was, and I talked to sort of friends of mine that, aren't paying as much attention or whatever. And they're smart, fun people, but they're just not. And I hear them say, how could the Clintons have known? And I'm like, oh, so that was the purpose of that Netflix documentary so they keep planting all of these seeds. And they've done it with both of the Kennedy assassinations. And again, all that stuff you just said about James Earl Ray and the Hedges, I didn't know much of that. I just knew, James Earl Ray killed MLK. So they just hammered that point home. James Earl Ray did it. James Earl Ray did it. Sirhan, Lee Harvey Oswald. And so then everything else just can be easily drowned out by some quick little, we did one study and that showed this. So, all right.
Yeah. And if someone wants to learn more about MLK, I can't remember the name of the book, but I had the author on Redacted tonight, and I'm sorry, but this is his name. His name is Dr. Pepper. Okay, you just have to accept it and move on. But Dr. Pepper, he was actually MLK's. He was a friend of MLK in his final year, and he became the lawyer for the King family when they had a trial. And in 1999, the only trial ever held about the death of Martin Luther King. And after 70 witnesses, the jury came back that the killer of Martin Luther King was not James Earl Ray, but was Lloyd Jowers, the owner of the bar there, along with government forces, quote unquote government forces, both state and federal. And that is the only trial ever held on Martin Luther King. And the New York Times has a little, from 1999, the New York Times has a little back page article that's about one paragraph long that just shrugs it off and says, it wasn't a real trial because the government didn't really care about it. Basically because the government failed to present a good defense or a good, explanation of what happened, that means the trial didn't matter. And they just kind of shoot it down, but they do acknowledge it exists. And that is the only trial I ever had. And anyway, Dr. Pepper has put out multiple books. I mean, you should read the most recent one because he keeps kind of updating his past knowledge. And the most recent one basically says who the killer was, which was a Memphis police officer, but he was put up to it by larger, higher level forces connected to the CIA and Hoover, and it was done with coordination of the owner of that bar and grill. So basically, the Memphis PD sharpshooter takes the shot. He then hands the gun to Lloyd Jowers. Lloyd Jowers goes into the bar, breaks the gun down, puts it in a bag to dispose of. And Jowers was still alive in his 90s at the time of this 1999 trial and confessed to being involved in this. And this was all in the trial, yeah.
And of course, none of it comes out. Well, all right, that's my government secrets segment. So we're gonna
maybe we'll save a whole other segment some future week for MLK and another segment some future week for Malcolm X because they deserve it. But
we could talk about Fred Hampton. I mean, we could keep they just wiped every progressive lefty leader, especially when they started unifying people. When Malcolm X and MLK started to get on the same page, that's when they're like, uh-oh. Like, we can keep you if you guys are going to divide the black community, great. But once they started getting together, it was like, ooh, we got to get rid of these guys. Like anytime you unify people, you're gone.
One of the things that blew my mind perhaps the most in that MLK, and Malcolm X Netflix documentary series, and I'll save the rest for some future segment, but was Malcolm X has his, close-knit security guards. A week before, or less than a week before, his house had been firebombed. So he's got these security guards around him and everything. But that doesn't mean security was that tight. There's no one checking people for guns when they walk in. I mean, that also wasn't common back then. But he's got this tight-knit security team that he trusts. And he's shot, two gunmen come up, basically just fill him with bullets and leave. And the guy who gives Malcolm X mouth-to-mouth and tries to save him is the top of his security team, secretly NYPD.
What?
Yeah, the NYPD had infiltrated his security team to the top, and so the guy who gave him mouth to mouth was NYPD. And you have like interviews with other former police chiefs who are, say, yeah, after he was shot, our infiltrator gave him mouth to mouth, which I don't understand that at all. I'm not saying shoot the guy, but if he gets shot, you're going to try and save him? Are you kidding me?
Jesus Christ.
I mean, it's just crazy. Anyway, speaking of executions, shall we move to the next topic?
Government secret segment number 2.
This is a blood-covered episode, really is.
It really is. This is a blood-covered episode.
I wanted to talk. I talked about Unredacted tonight, so I wanted to continue the discussion here. But recently, federal death penalties have continued again, restarted after 17 years. They've already killed at least 2 or 3 people. And here's the secret part of it. The biggest secret part of it is that the Trump administration and the Justice Department have secretly been testing and amassing execution drugs. This was covered in several outlets. I think I got it from either Reuters or Guardian or something. But it came out recently that they were secretly amassing these drugs because foreign governments refuse to make the lethal injection drugs that we use, because apparently governments have a moral qualm about executing people with lethal injection, but building bombs every country's fine with. That totes cool. I
love mental gymnastics. They're so fun. They keep you loose. They keep you spry. You're like, oh, killing people with a drug, that's evil, but setting them on fire from above, that is gold.
The mental gymnastics here is, these are feet behind the head. This is some serious shit.
This is like the Cirque du Soleil of this is just fantastic what they're doing. Oh,
These guys are so good at mental gymnastics. They suck their own dick. That's how extremely they are deep into this. Deep into this.
that's when you know they're really. You can suck your own dick, man. You have won.
So anyway, they couldn't get the drugs. So what they started doing was telling pharmaceutical and lab companies that they were, they wouldn't say who it was for, and they would say it was for something else. So it was like, we, need to kill a lot of horses and very large horses, and and they would say,
are there too many horses running around? That's what we're supposed to believe. Just wild horses trampling our schools. Is that going down?
Yeah. Yeah. So they got these labs to amass and test these drugs, and at least the labs claim that they didn't know who they were for, didn't know what they were for. So the first death penalties have gone forward in 17 years, federal death penalties, and it's just at what point do you think you start to think to yourself, maybe we're not doing the right thing. Maybe we're on the wrong side of history. Is it when you have to secretly collect death drugs because other countries won't sell them to you because they think you're out of your goddamn mind? Is that the point that you start?
It feels like the thing like a drug addict. Like, when did you hit rock bottom? Was it like when you were sucking dick behind the 7-Eleven for meth money? When was it? When did it hit you that maybe you went, wow, I'm having a moment of clarity? Like hiding the death drugs, saying they're for horses. When do you think you've crossed the line?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I've been a, advocate for ending the death penalty for years now, and really it's been one of my pet topics that I've worked more on than maybe some others, because it really is just completely indefensible. I've talked to people who support it, and there really is no fucking explanation for it at all. You have the stuff that most people don't know. For example, that the estimate is that between 4 and 5% of people executed are completely innocent, meaning had nothing to do with it. Okay.
Right.
Then, of course, there's a much larger percent who are severely mentally ill, to the point that some of these people clearly don't even understand what it is they did,
right,
or why they're being executed. And then you have that the number one determinant of whether someone gets sentenced to the death penalty is race of the victim. Because our society is really upset when a white person dies.
Yeah.
When a black person dies, apparently we don't give a fuck. So race to the victim is the number one determinant in these completely ridiculous death penalty cases. And then once you argue like everything, and plus more of the family members come out and say they don't want the person executed than do usually. And then when you argue at all the points of supporting the death penalty, you usually get down to two reasons. One is people will say, well, it's an eye for an eye. And you go, okay, that's fine. Except that is not how our legal system works in any other matter. If someone burns down your house, you don't sentence them to be on fire. If someone, I'm not saying it wouldn't feel good, but if someone rapes someone, they're not sentenced to rape. If someone, even in the case of an eye for an eye, even in the case of an eye theft, they aren't sentenced to have their eye stolen. Right. This never happens in any other aspect of our system except in killing.
Yeah, I know. Oh, you stole a car? Well, there's a lot. There's a car lot. Help yourself, friend. Just like
we'll steal your car. It doesn't. It doesn't. In no other area do we do that. And then the other reason people will come down to is, well, it feels good, all right, to get that vengeance. Well, sure, maybe for some people it feels good, but if we if legally we wrote things into law because they felt good,
oh dear Lord,
then every law would be like, oh, this person hacked your emails. Well, they're sentenced to 1,000 paper cuts and you get to piss in their mouth. Like, that would be every law. It'd just be, oh, it feels good. It feels good to, that oil CEO gets dipped in a vat of oil and oatmeal and pecked to death by the birds that he threatened. It feels good. It's not how our system works.
The guy broke in and stole your money. Wow, you get to shit on his face. There you go. Congratulations. Eye for an eye, brother. That's how it feels good.
Yeah. So in no other area do we do legal shit like that. And then, there's the brutality of our past death penalties, which I love this fun fact. The electric chair would likely never have existed, except that Thomas Edison was in a competitive race with Tesla and a businessman named George Westinghouse. And some people know this story. Edison was for direct current. Tesla and Westinghouse were for alternating current. Tesla, when he was working under Edison, had tried to convince Edison to do alternating current. And Edison said, you whippersnapper, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But Edison was losing the fight for which current was going to, cover America and become the electricity delivery system of the future. And so his plan was to create an electric current that would kill someone and tell everyone that was alternating current, so that they all got scared of alternating current. So Edison proceeded to fund a man named Southwick, invented the electric chair. Edison helped fund it. And they first did tests on animals. So there were a bunch of displays with reporters there of Edison electrocuting to death dogs, horses, and in one case, a circus elephant named Topsy.
Well, Topsy had a rap sheet. I mean, let's be real clear here. Topsy.
Listen, I think he was framed. I'm sorry, I disagree. I think he was framed. I think he was framed by a VW bus.
Wow. There's a lot of racketeering going on in the circus world. So I don't know. Topsy was doing something.
It was a VW bus in an elephant outfit that pulled off the crime. Wow. I can promise you, I knew Topsy. He would never do anything like that.
I don't know. I think Topsy had a secret dark side, buddy. I think there was a hidden darkness to Topsy that we were just finding out about. On the next Government Secrets, it's the Topsy revealed.
And Topsy was told he'd get a fair trial if he just signed that confession form. And then he did. And he was electrocuted. But so there's like early video of this poor circus elephant in Coney Island. In Coney Island being electrocuted to death for fucking no reason. Jesus. For no reason whatsoever, except that Edison was a maniac. So then they do the first human electric chair, and it's a guy named, I think, Kemmler, a convicted killer. And so they put him in the chair, and they electrocute him, and then, he goes limp, and Southwick steps forward, the inventor steps forward, and says something like, we thank you folks for being here. We now live in a more civilized world. This is the fruition of a lot of work and effort, and we live in a more civilized world. That's when Kemmler starts moaning. And they realize he was still alive in excruciating pain. And so the Southwick steps out of the way, and they go back to electrocuting him for like minutes until his head starts smoking.
Oh my God.
And then they again, I guess Southwick steps forward and goes, okay, now we live in a more civilized world.
Oh, like America is a psycho chamber. Like we're the evil, crazy people. We're the villain in every movie but we think we're the good guys. It's insane. We're just like, we say these things and don't even think, they don't sound crazy to us. Like, oh, we humanely murder people. I mean, that was a humane way to deal with justice. No, but you're not addressing any of it. It's like school shootings are up. Better armed teachers. Listen to that sentence where there's a thing you're missing. It's like, boy, we have an obesity epidemic. We need federally funded bigger belts. Like, it's just, it goes to, we are the most insane, out of touch country that's ever existed.
Well, one of the biggest things we do is anytime there's a good idea, we run screaming from it like it's a hive of angry bees that all want to talk to you about your life insurance. Like, it's just, we are horrified by good ideas.
Yes, I know.
As with Tesla and alternating current. So So Edison thinks he's accomplished this. I'm going to make the whole American public terrified of alternating current, and they'll all go to direct current. But all of this electrocuting of animals and killers had the reverse effect, where people did not care what type of current had killed these things. They just were horrified of electricity.
Well, that might be a good silver lining in this horrific cloud. It's just like,
Oh yeah, but don't touch the silver lining. It's electrified and you'll die.
you're gonna die. Great. So
Yeah.
everyone's just terrified that look at the thing that killed Topsy. I'm not plugging that into the wall.
Exactly. Hey, don't listen. I know we want Christmas lights, but that stuff killed Topsy. Okay, can you just back up?
It's like maybe Topsy was framed by Dumbo. We'll never know at this point, but I'm not going near that. I'm terrified. I'm terrified of holding this microphone as we talk right now.
But the death penalty has always been such a horrific, ridiculous. I mean, god awful. And you know, I think we on maybe the first episode or something, I talked about how most of the forensic, quote unquote, forensic science that is used to convict people of these death penalty crimes, you know, the arson experts and the tooth bite experts, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. These quote unquote sciences are not sciences. As I remember covering on an earlier episode, they sent out a tooth bite sample to everybody who is an official and licensed tooth bite expert. They sent out a sample and said, you know, is this a child's tooth bite? Is this an adult tooth bite? Or is this not a tooth bite? And literally it was like a third, and a third, meaning they couldn't agree at all whether it was even a tooth bite. And this is the shit that is getting people convicted for like life sentences and death penalties and shit.
Oh God, America is so broken on like 1,000 levels. Like, were we ever fixed? Maybe did we start broken? I feel like we started broken. I feel like America.
I think we were working fine when we were massacring all the Native Americans. I think we were.
That's when America was at its best, right? Just
we were at our
land.
best.
Yeah.
Smooth running.
Smooth running. Oh, let's make America great again. You know, Japanese internment camps, women can't vote. Genocide, slavery, fantastic stuff.
Do you have in these last 10 minutes another topic?
I do have another topic, another Gov Secrets segment number 3. So this is something, you know, you and I have both talked about a lot because it's one of these government secrets that everybody was made public, and then everybody just kind of pretends like it didn't happen. Just like, oh, it's just Topsy went away, you know, like something. This report that came out, and it came out a little over a year ago in February of 2019, that the U.S. killed more civilians in Afghanistan than the Taliban. This is a shocking UN report that came out. And I'm just going to... and you and I know we both covered it over a year ago. This is a year and a half ago now, and it's a report from the United Nations report. The U.S. and its allies in Afghanistan have been responsible for more civilian deaths in the country than the Taliban, who they're supposed to be fighting. What a damning indictment of U.S. foreign policy and engagement. And since that time, we've had the Afghanistan papers. We've had like all of this, and yet we're still in Afghanistan. We're coming up on October will be 19 years of officially at war with them. I mean, we sent people on the ground on September 11th. We apparently airlifted in special ops people or whatever. But like, when is America, especially now, especially like, as Steve Mnuchin just said, this extra $600 is disincentivizing people to work. This is what a psycho who's worth hundreds of millions of dollars says. And
right. That's him saying, listen, we've been effectively exploiting your labor for generations, and we're not going to stop now. All right. So please get back out there, folks. All right. Get your head in the game.
The audacity of these people who, first of all these companies got $4.25 trillion in the CARES Act. They get like Amazon doesn't pay taxes. Even in this last 3-4 months of the quarantine, these people have made 400 some billion dollars, and then that's 600. I'm sick of you freeloaders. You assholes haven't worked a day in your life, and yet, the thing that ties in is they're hemming and hawing over $600, yet we have trillions of dollars to go to this never-ending war in Afghanistan, the America's longest war. No one talks about it in the mainstream media. This is the longest war.
Well, and they'll run around with a horseshit story like Russia's paying the Taliban to kill U.S. troops. And if you were a reporter with even a modicum of ethics or education, who gave a shit, who wanted to be a serious human being on any level, then you would at least have one sentence in that article, which is, complete horseshit, that says, oh, by the way, the U.S. has killed more innocent civilians than the Taliban.
Yeah. It's like, oh, by the way, so even the mission that we're doing there is we've been failing for 19 years. Like, I was there as a comedian in 2004 and 2006 and 2007. But between 2004
But let's be honest, a front lines comedian. All right. You were out there doing your part. It was a secret weapon. You would make the Taliban laugh, and right then the U.S. troops would attack.
If I can get the Taliban to laugh at one of my dick jokes, we will win. Hearts and minds, Lee. Hearts and minds.
It's true.
But we got the Taliban.
That reminds me of your killer farts and minds joke. You have your farts and minds bits. It gets me every time.
Oh, thanks, buddy. That's why I sold a lot of merch with that. With that slogan.
that bit put a lot of backs on mattresses.
A lot of backs on mattresses. So that I remember in 2004, we got the Taliban out of power, and then rather than rebuilding the country and doing, similar to what we did with the Marshall Plan after World War II, which that's what Afghanistan should be if we literally were doing it the way we said we were, or correctly. Right now, we'd be like, oh, now there's commercial flights into Kabul, and we've spent all this money on hospitals and schools and roads, and we're bringing Afghanistan into the 21st century. And we just have blown it up, and by killing more civilians, we create more terrorists, more Taliban, everybody hates us. It's a waste of money. We're killing innocent civilians. We have troops that come home. We have 22 vets a day that commit suicide. It's never talked about. It's talked about like it's some sort of highway law that was passed in a state or something, just some sort of sidebar, Alabama might add a diamond lane. Oh, okay, great.
Oh, Alabama's going to let people drive at 16 instead of 17. That's interesting.
That's good law. Thank good we did that. By the way, we're making everything worse, and so I can't listen to one single, we don't have the money for it, or we're disincentivizing Americans when this shit is going on.
No, I mean, there's so much of what you're saying that's so important. I talked about the money. The whole idea of we don't have enough money is, of course, laughable on its face. As you said, $4.25 trillion in this latest bailout. David Day, an American Prospect, called it the largest theft America's ever seen, given to corporate leaders and Wall Street, and meanwhile, Mnuchin acts like they don't have enough money to keep people in their jobs or make sure there's an eviction freeze so people are not kicked out of their homes. I mean, it really is so revolting when the GOP and Mnuchin say, oh, people should not get paid for staying home and doing nothing. But we, the average workers of this country, built this society through our labor, our effort, our energy, our lifeblood. We are owed a functioning country that can protect us from a crisis like this. And instead, we are not getting that. We are getting a failed state that is doing nothing to help the people while giving trillions to the ruling elite. And as you also mentioned, the billionaires have collected over $500 billion since the thing started. Jeff Bezos is now worth $190 billion. And I don't know if Facebook changed their algorithm or something, but I had my first viral post in 4 years, even though I have a very large Facebook page, but they've basically not allowed anything to succeed for 4 years. My first viral post in 4 years was a people can see it at facebook.com/LeeCampComedian, but it got like 80,000 shares, and it was a photo of Jeff Bezos mentioning that he now has $190 billion. The average American worker makes $32,000 a year before the pandemic. And if the average worker were to save every penny and not be taxed, how long would it take them to have the amount Jeff Bezos has? They'd only have to work for 5.9 million years.
Okay, well, now there we go. Now that's something to achieve. I mean, that's a...
So you're saying there's a chance.
So put that on your vision board, everybody.
Yeah, put it on your vision board. Just put up, tack a little photo of Bezos up there, and just get to work.
5 some million years, you're going to be just like Jeff Bezos, because the system is just work hard and you'll succeed. That's what the system is set up to do. The other thing that drives me nuts, like about Mnuchin and all this stuff, talking about this $600, is there's no mention of how precarious the economy was before COVID-19. Mm-hmm. The 60% of the population that couldn't afford a $500 to $1,000 emergency. Well, let me tell you something.
Yep.
One showed up in March.
Yeah, a slight one.
A slight one showed up, and that even if you had $1,000, you paid rent 1 month. Maybe there's each month there's another percentage, a higher percentage of people who aren't able to pay their bills, and this I mean, people who are barely getting by. Some people are, well, they're making more money now with unemployment than they were beforehand. Good, because beforehand they were making slave wages. Like, what are you talking about?
Right. Good, because they were being they and we, average workers heavily exploited. Like the minimum wage in 1968 was like $1.60 something cents. And if it had kept pace with productivity and purchasing power, it would now be $24 an hour.
Right.
That's what people should be making, but they're not. The federal minimum wage is still $7.25 or whatever the fuck. And so it's the exploitation has just multiplied. I mean, the idea that they can't keep everybody in their homes during this disaster is just fucking disgusting. It's repulsive, and other countries are doing it. Other countries are keeping their unemployment low by paying corporations and companies only to keep their workers. We will give that company money if you keep people on the books as workers. Like, this is not an impossible idea. It's just that our ruling elite is, we are late stage capitalism beyond most other countries, and sociopaths in this system rise to the top. And those who are not sociopathic enough, those who have any level of empathy for others, for people below them, for people who have a more difficult time, you will not get to that top. You will not get to that boardroom. That boardroom is reserved for sociopaths only. There's a little sign on the door.
Yes, you have to take a sociopath test, and if you're not willing to do it, then you're not getting in. Yeah, it's unbelievable, man. And we can't even, fighting for $15 an hour minimum wage is like a struggle, and that's still $9 below what it should be compared to, and CEO wages have gone through the roof. They've gone through the roof, man. And it's like,
And yet, right now in this pandemic, who are we finding out are the actual essential workers? Are they like, the essential workers are the CEOs? You guys better get out there. Fuck no. They're like, the essential workers are the guys stocking the shelves.
No one's
the guy driving the truck. The guy who has a sandwich in a pail is the essential worker.
Yeah, no one's banging their pots at 8 o'clock at night for a billionaire. Nobody's doing that. Nobody's cheering for anybody. We're seeing it, and that's why, workers really need to unionize, really need to force this. And I mean, I don't know, if Steve Mnuchin and them get it, the 28 million, we've talked about this on previous episodes, the 28 million evictions that are happening, and they're in states all over America. And I looked at that map that they showed percentage of renters in each state.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a bunch of red states. It's a bunch of Trump supporters.
It's between 35 and 50% in most states.
In most states. And then these red states are in the 40 percentile to 50 percentile. Yeah. And there's plenty of blue states too, but there's not one state below 22%. I mean, the good states are in the 25 or under 30%. I mean, there's a bunch of states in the 30s, and it's ridiculous. And so when these people can't pay their bills and you took away that $600, what's going to happen? I mean, it's I don't think they realize this unless they're trying to make this happen, or they're just so greedy and dumb that I don't know. I don't know what they think is going to go down in the next like 6 months.
Well, I hope that people that in these dark times, and I realize this isn't going to put, anyone back in their house, but I hope people start to realize that this system's kind of a fraud. I mean, there's no reason that you should have to be working so hard. There's no reason that everybody shouldn't be housed in this post-scarcity world in which we live. There's no reason for any of this. It's just that we have an economic system that has been pounded into our heads since birth, and we don't even realize there's a different way of doing it. We don't even realize that literally all we'd have to do is decide that our society was going to handle these things, and we could do it. I mean, they can 3D print a house in hours. Like everyone could have their own 3D printed house, and the cost of it is $4,000. Like literally, they could just be like, "Hey, everybody, we've got 200,000 houses we just printed over the past few months. Just come on out here. We'll give it to you for free."
Yeah, here's a house. We'll just you got to pay the truck. You got to pay $100 for the truck to deliver it, and and you get a house. And all the money we're spending on war, that's the other government secret, is that we're bombing 7
and the
countries.
by the way, the F-35 is in the fucking bill, the latest bill that they're trying to get through. There's $600 million for the F-35.
Unbelievable. We can't do student debt forgiveness. That'd be a crime. But we got the same amount of money. $1.5 trillion is the total cost, if not higher now, for the F-35. Oh man. All right. Well, there's a government secret. There it is.
There we go. We are a ray of sunshine, I know, on this show, but I'd rather have the truth than the bullshit.
Yeah, I'd rather have the truth too. So yeah, I support everything I'm doing. GrahamElwood.com. My show, Political Vigilante. Everything's at GrahamElwood.com. I have a new round of Vigilante. I have a loose leaf tea. This is Vigilante Volume 2, The Dark Knight. There's only 50 units made. They're numbered. And there's all these things on sale on my website. And of course,
my favorite kind of merch is pun merch. So. I'm glad that's happening.
It's my second round of pun merch. And then, so my Patreon, Rockfin, all that stuff. If you're new to what I'm doing, subscribe to my YouTube channel, support me on the Patreon, Rockfin, all that stuff. It's all at GrahamElwood.com.
I'm at LeeCamp.com. That's where you can find my book, my new book, Bullet Points and Punchlines, with an intro by Jimmy Dore, forward by Chris Hedges. My comedy special is free at LeeCampAmerican.com. All my stuff is all the Redacted Tonight. My TV show is at youtube.com/Redacted Tonight. And although I don't normally promote my Facebook because of all the fucking shit that goes on there, they have allowed things, it seems, to actually go viral recently. So who knows? Maybe they're changing their ways. Doubt it. But that's at facebook.com/LeeCampComedian.
All right, and this is Government Secrets. We're trying to get it on iTunes and Stitcher and Spotify and all that. In the meantime, you can just go to the Libsyn link. And if you are listening to this, please share that out on your social media and just do hashtag Government Secrets and tag both Lee and I on whatever your social media is. So thank you for listening.
Thanks a lot. Keep fighting.
Keep fighting. Government Secrets, episode 5 in the books. Everybody, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification button and the subscribe button, even if you've done it before, because they're unsubscribing, many of you, every day. Watch the ads all the way through. If you click skip ad, I don't get paid. Also, support us at patreon.com/GrahamElwood or rockfin.com/GrahamElwood. Rockfin.com is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. All my videos are on Rockfin ad-free. Thanks for watching.